Today we got a Jeep Wrangler, a Rubicon that we're going to be lifting. We need to fit a larger size tire on for this customer. And so we're going to be putting on the TerraFlex 3-inch suspension kit. The difference of this kit is going to be improved handling on and off road, different spring rates, more adjustability in the suspension with the arms and the track bar for much better street ride, performance street ride, and a substantially better off-road ride. Right now we've got this vehicle racked and partially taken apart, and we're going to be ready to install some product. We'll remove the factory spring, factory bump stop, disconnected sway bar, track bars, loosened up a lot of the pivot points. As you loosen up these pivot points, it allows suspension to droop out. Basically in the front, we're going to be changing out the front springs, which will give us a much better spring rate for off-road and on-road. In that, we've also got some spring spacers, new spring seats that we will be using on this vehicle. Along with the front suspension, we're going to be putting in bump stop extensions. These, in a way, reduce the travel on the upswing, so as the suspension compresses, the tires won't hit into the fender wells. For our longer springs that we're going to be putting in, we have the monotube shocks that we'll be using for this lift kit. They're designed specifically for this Jeep. These are monotube construction, specifically designed and valved for this Jeep application. In the front, TerraFlex supplies, along with these sway bar disconnects, you get much more articulation. They supply a longer front brake line. Right now, the rear of this JK is completely disassembled, about as far as we want to go. You want to make sure to take apart the ABS lines, make sure to pull these plugs out. There is a special tool for pulling those out. Goes in there, just pops them right out. Doesn't damage them, then we can reuse them. If they're damaged though, we can replace them with factory pieces. The rear, we've also disassembled the sway bar link. We removed that. You want to make sure to loosen up all your bolts. These are under a bind. This allows it to droop out a lot easier. Again, removing the sway bar link. And on this particular kit, on the 3-inch, we're just having to remotely, on this 3-inch kit, we're just moving down the brake line in the rear. You don't need to disassemble it here. All you do is pull it out of the bracket up here. Leave it loose. We're going to be ready to put this thing together. Now going to the rear, we have rear springs, lower spring retainers, and upper spring guides. These also have a small spacer built into them. For the rear brake lines, we'll just be modifying the factory brake lines down. We'll be using the factory brake lines and just moving those down off the frame. The rear sway bar links will also need to be extended. TerraFlex has done a really nice job of reproducing the factory sway bar links in longer dimensions. You'll notice that they have all the factory boots, insulation, hardware. Everything's real nice. For the rear shocks, we'll be putting on the Bilstein 5100 series again, specifically designed for this Jeep. You also notice that the bar pins on this vehicle, they're vulcanized to the rubber, so you don't have the bar pins being damaged out on your trail. Along in the rear, we're going to use bump stop extensions. These will mount to the rear axle, and this will, again, we talk about reducing the travel, but really it limits the travel, and it will just allow you to run the taller tire in the rear. And the track bar. The track bar bracket will be mounted to the rear axle. This is real key to the suspension that TerraFlex has designed. You want to keep your rear track bar higher in the rear than you do on the front. Your front track bar will remain in the stock location. Now you've seen our standard 3-inch TerraFlex suspension kit. For this particular application, we're going to be doing a lot more modifications. These are all additional parts that we can put on this kit. We've got upper adjustable links for the front, lower adjustable links for the front, which will be key in the alignment process. This will allow us to get the right amount of caster that we need to get in this vehicle, also correcting the pinion angle. For this application on this Jeep, the factory drive shaft will go through a lot of abuse and will not be able to take the off-road abuse that this Jeep's going to go through. So we've stepped up to a 1350 U-joint. Also on this Jeep, we're going to be upgrading the track bar. We're going to be going to a substantially larger and stronger track bar. What we've got here is the factory track bar and the new monster track bar we're going to be installing from TerraFlex. It's adjustable and substantially bigger. This is one of the bigger problems that we have with the J-Case is the track bar is flexing. You can see the size of this is going to be a massive improvement over the factory one. Our J-Case is just about wrapped up on the rack. So to briefly go over things, we've got our new monster track bar in place, upper control arms, lower control arms, springs, bump stop extensions, our sway bar disconnects are in place, of course longer shocks, and last but not least up here in the front we've got a 1350 drive shaft. Here in the back, we got the rest of this J-K in the back. It's all finished up. Of course, shocks, springs. We got our nice little spring retainers designed by TerraFlex, also our spring guides. Bump stop extensions, upper and lower control arms, and of course we got our track bar being raised off the rear axle, which is again the optimal way to set up your rear track bar. Here we got the factory Rubicon BFG tire that we've taken off, and here we've got the new Toyo tire that we're putting on. Factory tire is about 32 inches tall. Our big Toyo here is about 35 inches tall. We've got our Jeep JK up on the rack, so we're going to be doing alignment on it. These newer vehicles with the ESP, it's really important that we get our caster correct. Also, since this one has both front and rear control arms, we also need to make sure that our tracks are correct. When it comes to the alignment, it's real crucial that you have the professionals do this alignment. Regardless of whether you're doing the kit yourself at home, you really need to bring it into us afterwards. We'll get the alignment done right, your ESP won't be kicking on. We got our JK all done with a combination of the lift and the tires. We got additional 7 inches of more height at the bumper. This kit's gonna allow for a real good articulation off-road. The springs will work real well. Our sway bar disconnects are going to work good for that. This thing will be able to climb like a billy goat. We've increased not only the clearance at the front bumper, we've also increased the clearance at the midsection. This is just a 2-door, which we don't have as much a problem, but in the 4 doors, it's a must. You really need to lift these things up. Putting on a 35-inch tall tire is about the minimum you want to do for the terrain we're seeing out here in the local desert.